I started to compose when I was about 14 or 15, but before that I'd spent a lot of time by myself near a piano or at a piano improvising. And I think probably if I think about when I started to compose, I'd actually say it was when I first started to improvise, because it was something I did for my own interest, not really for entertaining anyone, but something where I was just fascinated by sound. Funnily enough, when I look at some of those early things, I can see things then that I did then, which I think I'm doing the same sort of thing now, or maybe different things, but same ideas, trying to find their way out. I can remember as a young man thinking about why I composed a lot, because um, I think it was coming out of a point where I was kind of facing the realities of the music world, probably in my early 20s as a student, and realising that it's actually a pretty brutal and tough kind of profession. Thinking through that for me really raised the question of, well, why is it I actually compose? And at that point, I think I would have said, well, I felt a real compulsion to compose. I would have been incapable of stopping composing. I just had to compose. It was like breathing or eating or anything like that. You just have to do it. And that was pretty much how it started for me. As I've evolved, I've added one thing to that thinking about composing, which is not just that it's a necessity, but it's something I find incredibly enjoyable. So even if there was no commission, even if there was no performance, I would still find the actual act of sitting there, creating a piece of music, incredibly rewarding. And I quite often will say this to students, that if you, whether or not the composers or writers or whatever, if you don't actually enjoy the act of doing it, you should probably think about a different career, because there are so many things that will challenge you and confront you as you go, that if you don't have that underlying joy of expressing yourself, then I think it will be too hard. Well, I'm certainly aware of the composers that influenced me as a young composer, but I also feel some sort of sense of distance from them now. I think if I had to say the overriding thing that influences me is the actual nature of the musical experience. So quite often for me now, it's something I will hear by accident, I'll stumble across, and not be listening to in a planned way or an organised way like through a concert, but to actually be almost overhearing some music and thinking, what does that mean? How does that fit in? Why is that so powerful? Why is it so effective? Those kind of transient moments of musical experience which somehow creep into your life without them being formulated and determined. In a sense, I think you never completely find your voice. I think you're always looking for it. But it's not even that you're looking for the voice so much as looking to express the things you're trying to say. I think if you set out in a kind of arbitrary way to say, okay, this is what I am, I'm X harmony, B rhythm, C shape, whatever, orchestration, it becomes very artificial, contrived, manufactured things. It has to be, I think, an expression of what the things are that really drive you to want to compose in the first place. And they're about sound and a fascination with sound, a love of particular sonorities, a love of the way music can communicate and express things, a love of the performance environment, and a kind of level of excitement with the experience of music that actually is not particularly intellectualized, which is actually a directly communicative thing. So those things, for me, are always the things I will keep coming back to. There are particular sounds I find I always want to use, but on the other hand, I can get really sick of them too and think, I don't want to ever use that sound again. Silence is so important, and also that's been one of the big things that's changed in my music over the years, is just the sheer amount of silence has increased, and not so much like long extended silences so much as articulation, using little bits of silence or things that are almost silent. It's something that really, and I think it probably does reflect urbanised experience that we have, so much dominated by noise and unwelcome sound creeping into our lives all the time, and just to kind of suspend that for a moment, make the musical experience rich enough to kind of cancel that out. I think that the capacity to initiate your own projects is terribly important for me. A lot of the things I've done for Halcyon, for example, have come from something I've wanted to do. And so the best thing that can happen then is to have performers such as Halcyon or with other groups who actually just are so interested in what you're doing that they encourage you to really follow your own kind of aspiration. Composing is, in the end, it's going to be a measure of your creativity, not just technique and things. And facility, it's actually about, what is it that you're bringing to the world that no one else is bought before, you know.